President Putin has ordered troops taking part in military exercises near the Ukraine border. The surprise military drills in the Central and Western Territorial Commands were launched last Wednesday as tensions rose in Ukraine. They involved over 150,000 troops. The withdrawal comes after the European Union condemned the drills as an aggression and threatened Russia with sanctions if the troops did not return to their bases by Thursday.
Россия взяла на себя обязательство не сосредотачивать определенное количество войск в отдельных регионах на своей собственной территории. Ну что, колония чья-то, что ли? Ну ты можешь себе представить, чтобы Америка взяла на себя обязательство на территории США не двигать войска так, как ей хочется?
President Obama prefaced his visit to NATO with a stop in Estonia, where he stressed NATO's commitment to the Baltic states. At a meeting of leaders of the three Baltic nations, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, Mr. Obama had a clear message for Russia.
As NATO allies, we will meet our solemn duty, our Article 5 obligation to our collective defense. And today I want every Estonian and Latvian and Lithuanian to know that you will never stand alone.
The Alpha Company of the 173rd Airborne Brigade conducted an airborne training exercise at the Lavarde Air Base in Latvia. Company Commander James Marion led the training exercise, and the Secretary of the Army John McHugh observed the event.
Hit it! Good hit! 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, go. Up two! Up two! Go two.
Just moments before stepping on a plane Thursday, Ukraine's President Petro Poroshenko had an abrupt change of plans. Addressing the nation from the runway, the president saying Russian forces had entered Ukraine. Ukrainian military officials say 2 columns of Russian tanks rolled across the southeast border from Russia, firing missiles at a border post.
We can confirm that Russian military boats are on Ukrainian ground.
Ukraine's overmatched border guards fled.
Ukrainian forces are capable to tackle and to cope with the Russian-led guerrillas. But this is quite difficult for us to fight with Russia and its army.
At the White House, President Barack Obama blamed Russia directly for the escalation of violence in eastern Ukraine.
The violence is encouraged by Russia. The separatists are trained by Russia. They are armed by Russia. They are funded by Russia.
But as Ukrainian tanks pressed on, in some instances further into eastern Ukraine, which has seen the most pro-Russian activism, those tanks went on a strange kind of journey, from being Ukrainian tanks to being Russian tanks. In one instance, according to Reuters, 15 armored personnel carriers were surrounded and halted by a pro-Russian crowd, with soldiers handing over the firing pins from their rifles to a rebel commander. In another, apparently separate instance, purportedly shown by this YouTube video tweeted by Wall Street Journal's Tom Guerra, Ukrainian armored personnel carriers were surrounded by what appears to be a massive crowd of civilians. Ukrainian soldiers then seem to surrender. Soldiers appear to disembark from the tanks, joining their fellow soldiers on the ground. Then a Russian flag is waved above at least one of the tanks to the cheers of the crowds. Whether those tanks were ultimately taken over by pro-Russian civilians or instead by Russian special forces, or both, is still unclear. And whether those Ukrainian soldiers were deserters or captured is also unclear. The Ukraine Defense Ministry did confirm that 6 APCs were seized, it said with the help of Russian agents. Ultimately, this is what became of Kiev's resolute desire to take back eastern Ukraine. A formerly Ukrainian tank, now a Russian tank, doing a donut.
Mr. Speaker, the President of Ukraine.
Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko took to the podium before the U.S. Congress Thursday to make a direct plea for lethal military aid. He said under-equipped young men fighting for Ukraine stand between peace and a new Cold War.
Please understand me correctly. Blankets, night vision goggles are also important, but one cannot win the war with the blankets. Even more, we cannot keep the peace with the blanket.
We have provided substantial security assistance to the Ukrainian military, and that reflects our commitment to the Ukrainian people.
1,200 kilometers from the front lines, Ukrainian troops prepare for battle. Before long, the enemy arrives. But these are not Russian-backed rebels. These are American. It's an annual exercise involving 15 countries that the commander of U.S. Army forces in Europe, Lieutenant General Donald Campbell, says has special meaning this year.
From the military standpoint, obviously Russia's illegal annexation of Crimea, their actions in eastern Ukraine have certainly changed the geostrategic land in Europe.
The exercises are both symbolic and very practical, with Ukrainian troops in a shaky ceasefire with the separatists in the east, says the commander of the Ukrainian army, Lieutenant General Anatoly Pushnenko.
Зараз ми створили 4 групи, сіміків так називаємих, із досвіду Іракської війни, Афганської війни.
At a checkpoint in eastern Ukraine, soldiers apprehend 2 suspects they believe to be working with pro-Russian separatists. It's part of the daily routine here at a crossroad in Debaltseve, deep in Donetsk province.
It's a foreign legion. In this case, it's a foreign NATO legion, with no aim in the national interest of Ukraine. They have completely different aims connected with the geopolitical aim of containing Russia.
Ukrainian land forces battle it out alongside over 1,000 troops from 15 nations as part of this year's Rapid Trident exercise. The war games, which wrapped up last week, were planned ahead of the current crisis in the country and saw US Army Europe forces take the lead in military drills near Lviv on the Polish-Ukrainian border, over 1,000 kilometers from fighting in the east of the country. Rapid Trident has been an annual exercise since 2006 and was initially scheduled for mid-July, but was postponed because of the fighting in eastern Ukraine. Including troops from several NATO allies and former Soviet bloc countries that are part of NATO's Partnership for Peace programme. The exercise focused on improving working together on the battlefield.
Primary things that we were trying to get out of this exercise probably relate more to interoperability. And I'm talking interoperability not just within communications, but also interoperability in staff planning processes, a common understanding of national SOPs, battle drills, tactics, techniques, and procedures.
Participants had trained in military tactics during situational training exercises and a final field training exercise.
You have to learn how to work together in peacetime before you find yourself in a coalition working together under pressure. In some place it's a little more grim.
Этим тоже скажи, одно отделение вот там вот, куда они пошли, хай останавливаются там.
This year's exercise was held amidst efforts by Ukraine to strengthen the fragile ceasefire in the east of the country. The exercise also sent a strong signal of support to Ukraine from allies and partners.
Сказати вдячність за підтримку України у цей складний для неї час самою присутністю ось цих військових контингентів
is a response to what we have seen from Russia over a period of time. Russia continues to disregard international rules and to support the separatists with advanced weapons, training and forces.
While the US has sent trainers to work with Ukraine's military and supplies, Ukraine's requests for lethal aid continue to go unanswered. Jeff Selden, VOA News, the Pentagon.
I take with me the passport and military ID of Russian soldiers, Russian officers who were come to us and leave it together with that. This is the best evidence for the aggression and for the presence of Russian troops. We make lots of press conferences demonstrating to the whole world of the Russian soldiers and officers which lost his way 100 kilometers from the border.
Well, together with some other journalists, I'm travelling through southern Russia towards the border with Ukraine. We've got a military escort in front. That's because this trip has been organised by the Defence Ministry. And that is because during the night, 438 Ukrainian servicemen crossed the border with Russia and have asked for refuge here. And we're being taken to meet some of them. This is Gulkova, right on the border with Ukraine, and this is the field camp which the Russians have set up for those 438 Ukrainian servicemen who came across the border and took refuge here. They say that there was fierce fighting going on between the Ukrainian army and militants, and they had no choice but to come here.
This is Ukraine's 72nd Brigade. Not everyone here wanted to talk to us about what had happened. Those who did told us they'd been under intense pressure. With no ammunition left and no backup, they'd retreated to Russia. Despite strained relations between the two countries, they'd been allowed in and given food and accommodation. If they want to go back to Ukraine, they can, the Russian security official says, or they can apply to remain in Russia. Yuri blames Russia for stoking the violence in Ukraine. Our nations should be friends, Yuri says. It's just that politics gets in the way. Russia claims its actions here were humanitarian. But Ukraine continues to believe that this is a conflict which Moscow is fueling.
With the full tanks of ammunition, killing my soldiers and killing Ukrainian civilians.
Later, the Ukrainian army targeted a rebel base in town, but they missed. Shrapnel hit the maternity hospital. We just heard a crump of artillery, distant, not that close, but nevertheless people, the patients and some of the staff have run down here to the basement because it's the safest place in the whole hospital. What kind of world is the next generation being born into? Many here have little love for Ukraine's new president, Poroshenko.
Чтобы у Порошенко и его родственников вот так рождались внучки и внуки, как мы сидим, посмотрите, разве это нет же в светлых палатах, какие есть, а вот так разве можно это под этими выстрелами? Я не знаю, не хочу сказать.
Говорите, пусть весь мир поднимается, нечего вот это вот, это ужас, что делается.
The laundry in this part of the basement now serves as the premature baby unit.
Мы боимся за детей жизнь, за свою жизнь, в конце концов. Но роддом, это что-то святое должно быть у всех. И вообще, я не понимаю, не представляю, как можно быть такими людьми жестокими.
We should be supplying arms, defensive arms to Ukrainians.
I very much incline in that direction, Mr. Chairman, because I think we need to support the Ukrainians in defending themselves.
There has been, today, this week,
last week, 3 weeks ago, longer than that, discussions about the potential provision for lethal assistance to Ukraine. It remains on the table.
Earlier this week, an article appeared in the New York Times claiming that top officials in the Obama administration were reconsidering calls to provide Ukraine with military assistance. The U.S. has provided more than $50 million in non-lethal military aid and has pledged more, but has stopped short of providing weapons.
152 мм.
Але казали, хто ребенка не розпинав, за младенцями не займали. Тобто за мами не займали. Зарежуть ще скоріше, як це їде.
Donetsk, Hospital Cleaning Building number 9. At the entrance, relatives and close friends of the family are waiting. The mother is crying. She has nothing to say to the camera. What can she say? She will see her son in a small coffin in a few minutes. The boy, Sasha, was only 4 years old. Children are defenseless. And the statistics are cold. 50 bodies per day, 1 child per week. During the period from August to January, 34 bodies of children came to the house number 9. Stop it.